that he was a clown, always acting silly. And so he was, I guess they'd just running along, they just put the floors in. I think they're about the 11th or 12th floor, way up high. And he would run and slide. We used to do that. In our stocking feet, I did that a lot at the Crazy Hotel. But he was way up high, like the 11th or 12th story, and he was running along and sliding toward the elevator shaft, and one of the black people that was working there said, "I would have stopped him, but I thought knew what he was doing." And so he slid down the elevator shaft and fell all the way down. It killed him. So he was one of the first few people that get killed from the Baker. There's some things. My aunts worked there at the Baker, and my Aunt Zutha used to work at the swimming pool at the Baker, and she would let me and Mary Catherine and Donald get in free whenever we went swimming at the Baker Hotel pool. Remember the time when I was in high school we had a bake sale there, and they put me and my girlfriend and one of the school teachers on the basement of the Baker Hotel, and selling baked goods and things like that. Actually, the only time I worked for one of the hotels was whenever I was a senior in high school, and I worked for the Crazy Hotel as a butter and water girl at the restaurant.
What did you do?
I put butter and water on the tables when they first got there, and then the waitress would come by later, and so anyway, I did that, and the convention, the Texas Republican Convention, was held here in Mineral Wells that year, and so they had to. Actually, Mineral Wells is set up pretty good for conventions because they had two big old hotels and a big old convention hall.
Well, I would park the elevator on the
Mezzanine.
guest floor, and then in the evenings, people would start coming in and taking their seats, and they had a little stage on the north end of the lobby, and they had a big grand piano there, and in the evenings, this guy would come in and he'd talk kind of funny like, real soft.
Right.
And I think he was Liberace, I'm not sure.
How about that?
And his music was beautiful. It's none of this junk you hear nowadays, that you're splitting a bunch of racket. And he played all those classical numbers and everything, and he would sit there and he would greet the guest, and he would say a few words, and then he would play for about an hour, hour and a half. Well, it was so pretty, and I would move the elevator up to the mezzanine floor, and then I could look down on top of him. He was, off to one side, and I could watch him play, and then I would watch. And if people started toward the elevator, then I would take the elevator back down and pick them up. But one thing I noticed working there was the people, this was wartime now, in the 40s, and the guests were always happy. And they were friendly with each other. Everybody was so nice, and I remember thinking, these people, I know they have money, and all that, but they seem so secure in life. They don't, we didn't have all this stuff we got now to contend with. And I thought, when I get old, I sure hope I feel secure like that. And one day, the elevator stuck between the mezzanine and the main floor. And I had two ladies on the elevator, and it wouldn't move. You had a wheel, and you stood by the elevator, and you turned it to your right, the elevator went down. And then you put it in neutral. If you turned it to the left, the elevator went up. And so it wouldn't move, and so I opened the door and looked up, and there was a space about, maybe 14, 15 inches between the elevator and the floors. And so I'm 16 years old, so I grabbed the top of the elevator and went up through that hole, that area, got on top of the elevator, and reached up and grabbed the hand, the handhold thing to open the door on the mezzanine. And so I crawled. It was only about 2 or 3 feet to step up, and I stepped up on the mezzanine, and I went on down the stairs and went over to the desk and told them my elevator was stuck. And they said, well, we'll get somebody. And then they said, well, how did you get out? And so I explained it to them, and they said, you could have been killed. Judy Garland was there, but I didn't meet her. She wasn't on my elevator. When she came to town, I was downtown by the Baker Hotel. And some people were lining up along the sidewalk between the Baker Hotel and the post office. And so I asked them, I said, what's going on? They said, well, Judy Garland's coming to town, and she's going to be going to the post office. So and sure enough, a few minutes later, here come this car, and everybody was clapping and everything. So I'd seen some of her movies, and I really liked her, and I wanted to see her. I ran along beside the car and looked in.
Oh, no.
And I ran about a block and looking in, and she was listening to somebody talking in the front seat. I could see his mouth working, and she never looked at me. And so I stopped her. I walked away from there, and then she went on into the Baker Hotel. The Baker it was open to the public, to the kids, and the swimming pool and all that stuff was open. And we spent a lot of happy days there in that beautiful landscaped area and swimming pool. And I had a submarine, and you'd pull the cork out of the top of the conning tower and put a key in there and wind it up. And all us boys had more fun playing with that submarine. It would dive about 2.5 feet, and then it would slow up, and then it would surface. And then it would gain speed and then dive again about 6 inches and then come back up and then drift along until it ran out. It had a real nice motor in it.
And you used to play with it in the Baker swimming pool?
Yeah, in the Baker pool. And all us boys, we'd swim along by the side of it and watch it as it was going down.
A landmark in this little town. But in 1896, Mr. Baker decided to build a hotel in this resort community of Mineral Wells, Texas. And he didn't finish it until 1929. He made a little trip to California in the meantime. When he went to California, he decided that he liked swimming pools. So he actually came back and put a swimming pool in his motel that was built in 1929, the first swimming pool in Texas. So the Baker Hotel was a major landmark here, built with 450 rooms, with ice water in every room, and air conditioning in the early 1940s.
I was about 6 years old or less whenever the Baker Hotel was built. And so I remembered it all my life, just about.
And so this place was surprisingly famous. People like, let's say, Glen Miller and Lawrence Welk and Clark Gable and Marlene Dietrich and all those people. There was three political conventions here. There was a 1952 Texas Republicans, 1954 Texas Republicans, and 1954 Texas Democrat conventions here, because they could host 2,500 people in this town of 6,000 people. So it was a big deal. They started air conditioning maybe in 1940s, early 1940s. This was an air-conditioned building. So that and then it had ice water to every room, and they had fans that would turn off when you opened the door. So anyway, so in the 1930s they opened it up, and it kind of the business slowed down, and maybe by 1940, Mr. Baker was kind of moving into bankruptcy. He put his son, a nephew, Earl Baker, in charge of it, who was also ran the Gunter Hotel in San Antonio at the same time. And so this Mr. Baker actually lived in the hotel till 1967, when he actually died in the hotel. They shut it down in 63. I was 8 years old then, so maybe I actually went in. What happened in the 1940s, they opened Fort Walters outside of Mineral Wells, which was a military base with the largest concentration of infantry in the country in a military base, so I read. And so it slowed down, and then it closed after the World War II, and later they opened it up as a helicopter base, where they trained all the helicopter pilots in the Army. That's when I remember seeing all the helicopters flying around Mineral Wells.